Howdy, howdy, everyone. I am Andrew Dornan, also known as the 12th guy in here on the interwebs. And today, I want to talk to you about a little show from a not-so-little franchise called Healin Good, Pretty Cure. However, you might have noticed that I am not wearing a suit, which means what I'm about to talk about is pretty good. Pun God damn it. I can't do it. Oh, it's so bad. So bad. We're going to move on. Oh, by the way, yes, there will be spoilers, obviously, in this video. So if you want to watch the show with a fresh mind, then you can watch it for free on Crunchyroll. Or you can watch it using non-kosher methods, but you did not hear that from me. Shh. I am not officially endorsing piracy. Do not tell Crunchyroll. Please, I beg you. Anyways, let's get on with how Healin Good Pretty Cure was a healing good time. He said the title of the video. Let's wrap it up. Roll credits. Some of y'all may have assumed just by looking at me that I must watch a lot of anime. But I'm gonna give you a little bit of a surprise. I really don't hardly ever watch anime. The only two series I watched to completion before this were Dragon Ball Z and Ghost Stories, both of which were dubbed because I am a heathen who does not like to read while he's watching his shows. Want to know the list of anime that I've started but never finished? Well, here you go. Attack on Titan, One Piece, Naruto, Bakugan, Dragon Ball Super, Cory in the House, Gundam Unicorn, Clannad, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Pokemon. Just fucking try to name them all. I fucking dare you. Cory in the That's a lot of shows I've started but never finished. And to be quite honest, going into Healin Good, I was not 100% sure that I was going to like it, but I did want to watch it all the way through, just so that way I could have a third series under my belt. And honestly, I did. I really liked it. It was so fucking good, y'all. Holy shit. So with that out of the way, I want to talk about my thoughts on each and every single episode of the show. Alrighty, it's now time for me to give my thoughts on each and every episode of Healin Good. Fuck, this is gonna take a while. Like any good pilot episode, episode 1 of Healin Good introduces its concept and core characters without delay. We learn a villain's goals as well as the goals of our heroes and heroines, and also we get a pretty good rough idea as to what the world is like. In episode 2, we get a proper introduction to 2 more villains, as well as all of the villains' boss, our resident big bad. We also get good character moments between the healing animals and Nodoka, as well as, well, some backstory for Nodoka. These character moments also help establish the relationships between some of these characters. Episode 3 does a good job of introducing the second of the 3 main magical girls, as well as further developing the relationship between Nodoka and Chiryu. There is yet to be an issue with power creep, although I feel like that's something that's gonna rear its ugly head once all 3 girls get their powers. It's also established that sometimes just defeating the monster is not enough to restore Lady Rate. In this episode, we finally get a proper introduction to Hinata, our third and final magical girl of the season. She's definitely ADHD coded, which in my opinion is a good thing for folks who have ADHD, as it gives them representation in one form or another. The bit about her seeing Nodoka and Chiryu as pretty cures is honestly cute and hilarious, especially when even Giraru and his monster are completely confused by the whole situation. The episode also did a great job of establishing a relationship between all 3 girls in just a short amount of time. One of this episode's strengths was showing how communication is crucial in friendships and relationships in general, and the power of the buddy system. As with every episode, there's at least one comedic bit, and this episode's bit easily has to be Chiru and Hinata absolutely fucking assaulting the demon lady to try and save Peggy-tan. It was just so perfect. That was a lot of talking. I hope you enjoyed me giving my thoughts on each episode, because there's more where that came from. My immediate first thoughts about this episode is how the mom getting assaulted by one of the villains is supposed to be scary or have some sort of shock value to it, but honestly, it comes across as hilarious due to the near slapstick nature of it. We also get a better idea as to Lady Wraith's relationship with the rest of Notika's family, as well as how the three healing animals try to watch over her. If I were to get specific about whose episode this was, I would probably say it was Lady Wraith's. At the time of writing my notes for this episode, I was pretty sure that this journalist character was a one-off character because I really, really fucking hated him. He stalked Notika the entire time and then tried to gain sympathy by explaining, oh, he just gets too involved in his work. I could go on, but honestly, I would have a heart attack from just how high my blood pressure would get. Anyways, we did get to see how well these three girls work well together and even stick out for one another when one of them gets harassed. The one comedic bit for this episode has to easily have been when the stalker journalist tries to interview a monster that can't say more than its own fucking name. This episode was definitely Chiryu's episode, with some spotlighting on Peggy-tan's relationship with her. It also touches on a very real problem that athletes and performers in general get when they have high expectations to live up to. This episode was definitely a spot of character development for Hinata, but definitely not a turning point for her character, because something like what she's dealing with cannot simply be overcome. Instead, it needs to be a learning process and be adjusted to. We also get to see more of the sort of group dynamic and the chemistry that these girls have with one another. Episode 10 was pretty good. We got to learn about Notika's love for art, as well as her willingness to go forth and protect others, even if it causes her harm. We were also treated to the rare sight of the villains dividing up our heroines so that they could be less effective. Holy shit. That was a lot of talking, and we're not even done yet. Welcome to my bathroom, the one room in my house where it makes it impossible for me to use my microphone, so we're using the camera's audio. Let's discuss episodes 11 through 15, shall we? This episode basically felt like episode 10, part 2. But that's understandable given that the team only has 24 minutes to work with. The girls did get one new power to defeat the massive Bugin, however, it seems like something that they'd use sparingly, if at all, in the future. Also, there was no real comedic bit this episode because it was just mostly tension. Overall, this episode did a really good job introducing us to a lesser villain that, in my opinion, seems more interesting than the other three main villains. We also got a good chunk of the episode dedicated to the three girls becoming closer together. Episode 13 was definitely both Beaver Demon's and Hinata's episode, as both got some really good character development. We also got a better establishment of Beaver Demon's relationship with the other Byugan demons, especially how Gyuru, if I'm even pronouncing that correctly, has taken a shine to him. There wasn't a specific character that could claim this episode as their own, as all of the characters got equal amounts of character development. But we did get an interesting monster design and see the main three girls enjoy themselves for a while. Overall, it was a good episode, but in my opinion, it would have been even better if there wasn't a monster fight and just was filler. This episode was definitely Rabirin's episode. I would like to raise that while, yes, Rabirin did get upset with Nodoka, it was ultimately Niatoren that should have apologized for being antagonistic towards Rabirin. Other than that, we got a good idea as to what happens when one of the girls isn't properly in tune with their partner animal and what must be done in order to make amends and be able to transform once again. We're now a third of the way through the show. Are you excited yet? Okay, so this section is going to be a lot longer than the others, and my reason for that is because episode 28 changes the whole feeling and vibe of the show. It's kind of crazy. So with that being said, let's talk about episodes 16 through 27. In my honest opinion, this episode was sweet and wholesome. We got to learn a bit more about the culture of this town and what it means to the people who live in it. We also learned that Beaver Demon is just throwing shit at the wall to see what sticks in terms of his whole sort of deal or personality or vibe. I think for the most part, this was Chiryu's episode. In fact, I'm getting the feeling that every now and again, at least one or two characters gets a whole episode dedicated to giving them some character development. There's not a lot you can do in a 24-minute anime, especially one that has recurring animations, but they still manage to do a lot in a short amount of time. Overall, this was a good episode with a focus on Niatoren, although I would like to call into question his intentions with the aroma shop owner when it was revealed that she was married and he was completely devastated by that news. Other than that weird part, we got to see a really good heart-to-heart between Niatoren and Hinata, which is very nice. It was interesting having the main issue of this episode be focused on this mystical dog princess that gets taken down by a common earth disease. But it is interesting in another sense in that we don't really see that in other shows where we have beings that travel from world to world. On a less positive note, it did feel like the writers kind of boxed themselves into a corner during the fight, but having learned the circumstances of the production, I can let it slide. We got a closer look at the extent of Asumi's powers, as well as how she tries to navigate her responsibilities in the beginning. Also, we did see the end of Beaver Demon. Rest in pieces, comrade.
He was just a rookie trooper and he surely shook with pride. He checked all his equipment and made sure his pack was tight. He had to sit and listen to those awful engines roar. You ain't gonna jump no more. Gory, gory, what a hell of a way to die. Gory, gory, what a hell of a way
This was 100% Asumi's episode, as it was all about getting her situated as the fourth member of this party, along with slowly teaching her how Earth works, and more importantly, how not to just get killed by random things. It did feel like Asumi is leaps and bounds more powerful than the first three girls, but I feel like that's something that's going to balance out over time. Like with the previous episode, this one was also Asumi's. We got to see the establishment of her place within Norika's family, as well as further develop her understanding of the world thanks to Chiryu. There was a moment where I was kind of hoping that Asumi would nuke Simp Demon, but she ended up not doing it.
You were the chosen one!
I feel like there are going to be a lot of episodes where Asumi is given further development of her knowledge of the world, as well as how to navigate her emotions. Even though Hinata played a large role in this episode, it was ultimately still Asumi's. She got some amazing character development, and so did the dog that Hinata was caring for. We had even more character development for Asumi in this episode, which honestly makes a lot of sense because she has the most room for growth. We also got to see that mega parts can be used to create new Byugan demons, which is a neat concept that I hope they develop further. The comedic bit for this episode easily has to be the bird demon who can fly but is afraid of heights. I didn't realize that I forgot to record my thoughts on episode 25 until several days after I recorded that scene and edited it in Final Cut. So here we go, my thoughts on episode 25. Hands down, this was Pegaton's episode. He got some major character development. And also, the girl who just swiped him off of that park bench got a decent bit of character development as well. Now, like many episodes, there was also a comedic bit in this one, and the comedic bit was Simp Demon having Gararu effectively be a TV antenna so she could watch the drama show. It was honestly just a big ol' recap of who showed up and what new powers they got. There was the B plot of the girls setting up a big surprise for Asumi, but it ultimately felt kind of to me. I did say at one point while watching the show to Flower Gothic that I wouldn't mind some filler to break apart the whole Monster of the Week fighting, but if I'm gonna be real, I've seen better filler. Episode 27. It was a really good episode, albeit one with less character development for Asumi than I would have liked, but still way more than in episode 26. We still haven't seen the team create a 4-person move, but I feel like that is something that's going to happen in the future.
And then it just went and ended with Norika getting fucking stabbed. What?
Oh my lord, we are well over halfway done. Just like with my thoughts on episode 25 back in part 5, I didn't realize that I had failed to record the opening line of part 6 until well after I sent the footage into Final Cut and was like, yes, this is perfect. So I'm recording it in Minecraft because fuck you, this is my video. At any rate, you might be wondering, how exactly does episode 28 change the whole vibe of the show? Well, it's all thanks to our favorite villain, Darutsan. Let's talk about that.
しみの再来ダルイゼンあなたは
I would argue that this was Darutzen's episode. While the major tone was focused on the health of Nodoka, it was ultimately Darutzen and his experiment that gained the on-screen focus. We also learn about Darutzen's origins, which is that he used Nodoka as a host, which has some extremely interesting implications that hopefully get explored later on. Did you catch that? Nodoka's rough childhood and all of her health struggles were caused by Darutzen. Like, holy shit! The vibe has now changed. Now that we know how episode 28 changes the vibe of the whole show, let's talk about episodes 29 through 35.
のどかのストレス気分転換を探せ
Honestly, episode 29 has a good lesson for kids about not pushing yourself too hard and not being afraid to ask those close to you for help. There was definitely a focus on Nodoka, so I think it's safe to say that this was her episode. Also, we got to see more of the group dynamic in action.
キャラがバラバラ動物園の休日
We got a bit of character development for Asumi, but not a lot. We also got to see more of the group dynamic through the lens of teaching Koda what it means to be friends with people who have very different personalities from you, which is a major lesson to teach to kids.
両源氏の進化お手当てはヒーリングッドアロー
Overall, it was a super solid episode. We got a continuation of the Gigabugan plot point and saw what it could do to the pretty cures if they aren't prepared. We also got to see the equivalent of Super Saiyan 2 for these girls, with Super Saiyan 1 being Oasis and Super Saiyan 2 being that god-awful syringe attack. We also got some good character moments between the girls and also some moments between Koda and his father.
お姉ちゃんみたいに僕のおかみ修行
Episode 32 was a really good episode all about life lessons, teaching kids to not overdo it and not to compare themselves to others. We also got some good character moments of the main cast highlighting their strengths and their personalities. Also, the stakes are indeed getting higher as Goraru has evolved himself and can now also infect humans.
思い出の再会過去の私の贈り物
We got a bit more insight into who was taking care of Nodoka and how her recovery or lack thereof really affected him. We also saw Darutzen evolve himself, albeit begrudgingly, after King Byugin berated and yelled at and belittled him. Also, based on Darutzen's dialogue during the fight, we might start to see some serious infighting amongst the Byugin demons. The monster designs have really stepped up a notch since they've started infecting humans, too.
私がライバル自由の求めた翼
The whole episode was definitely for Chuyu, and we got a valuable lesson about healthy rivalries through the lens of a high jump competition. Also, as a quick aside, the monster designs for this part of the show have yet to disappoint. We did also get a good look at how Pegiton, despite coming so far, is still a sweet little ball of anxiety, and I just want to protect him so much.
手と手でトスボールつないで青春を手当て
Oh my god, this was arguably the most wholesome beach episode in any anime or anime adjacent property that I've ever seen. It was also interesting watching Goraru make a Mega Byugin and then train it in the art of volleyball. Also, side note, this actually teaches us that Mega Byugins can learn and eventually become independent thinkers, as we saw with this Mega Byugin start to question Goraru's orders. This honestly has very interesting implications about the growth of Byugins from Nano to Mega to Giga to Demon to King. Oh my god, how long was that segment?
We're almost to the end. I hope you're ready. Special shout out to Cameron, also known as Trainer Shy Guy on YouTube and Twitch, for recording this part within the Halo Master Chief Collection for me.
ナターシャの憂鬱お勉強大作戦
I kind of forgot that in Japan you apply to high schools because in America you just go to one. Anyways, this episode taught yet another valuable lesson in communication and that you can continue to have friendships even if your friends move away. This was definitely an episode for Hinata, and we got some more development for her as well. We are starting to see a return of Mega Byugans, which makes sense as Gigas seem way too powerful to keep having them around all of the time. It was definitely an episode centered around the healing animals. We got to see some really good character moments between all of them, along with their collective biggest hope and fear. Also, despite being smaller than my foot, they all still tried to attack Dorutsan, which had the biggest small dog energy and was just amazing to watch unfold. Episode 38 was a really good character development episode for Chiryu, and also a good lesson that you can have more than one passion in life. Also, yet another solid monster design. We also learned what Toji's big dream is and why. This episode showed an interesting concept of how the Byugan demons can create gateways to their dimension in addition to just teleporting in and out. Also, it does leave on a bit of a cliffhanger, so I think there's definitely going to be a new big bad because the old King Byugan got destroyed. That's the theory. There weren't any life lessons in this episode, just some really good exploration followed by a really nice fight. Honestly, I had a hunch that one of the Byugan demons were going to try to betray the king and usurp the throne, but it was still cool to see nonetheless. King Goraru's design, again I'm going to keep butchering his name, was super cool, and Dorutsan's apathetic attitude towards the whole situation was hilarious. I have a feeling that we might see Synth Demon again, and she might try to kill Goraru because of what he did. We also got a nice life lesson about how even if you fail sometimes, you shouldn't let that define who you are as a person. Wow, where do I even start? We got the return of King Byugan, which honestly came out of left field for me, but I'm glad that the original big bad is back and badder than ever. We also saw Dorutsan flee the Byugan kingdom after almost getting absorbed into the king's body. I'm not sure if Dorutsan is gone for good, but we'll find out soon enough. This episode was really intense with some seriously high highs. Okay, so in this episode, we saw that the healing army is about to be regrouped and readied for war. Dorutsan attempted to flee and recover by over-evolving, which ultimately had the inverse effect as he eventually got consumed by King Byugan, who then promptly evolved further. We also got a really strong character moment from Nodoka. In episode 43, we saw the complete and total takeover of the city, but also Lady T's army swooped in like a deus ex machina to entrap King Byugan. We also got to see Synth Demon's final form, which made her incredibly powerful and far hornier than ever, before being completely fucked up not too long later. There was also a nice character moment with Asumi, wherein we got to see the final bit of her development. This episode could arguably be the finale of the story, as we have the destruction of the big bad and the saving of the world all wrapped up. We had a really solid character moment from Nodoka as she gave her speech about wanting to keep on fighting and protecting the world. The girl's secret about being the pretty cures did get revealed to the town, but honestly, it's a non-issue at this point. We are almost done.
It's finally time. The moment you all have been waiting for. The dissection of the finale. I would argue that episode 44 is the true finale to the show, and that episode 45 is just a bonus. But let's get into what exactly we see in this episode. We get to see the girls visit the healing garden for the very first time, as well as get to witness what the war between the Bugans and the healing animals has done to parts of their world. There's also a monkey character that is like super racist against humans, but in my opinion, it's for good reasons.
Shocking images of chaos and halting.
Oh, and also there's a cameo of one of the Pretty Cures from the current continuity, Tropical Rouge. Here are the thoughts that I wrote down for this episode. Episode 45 was a nice final episode to wrap up the series. We got to see that not everyone in the healing garden likes humans, as with the racist monkey, but we were also treated to some very nice character moments from everyone. For example, during the Bugan fight, which is the final fight for the entire show, we got to see Asumi break down and start freaking out over the fact that she has to fight these sweet buns because she has fallen so madly in love with how delicious they are. Oh, also that cameo I mentioned, yeah, that was fun too. God damn, 36 pages and over 6,000 words later, we're finally at the end of the tunnel. Just need to give you my final series thoughts. So, here we are. Champagne glass, full of Sprite. We're at the end of the tunnel. I guess I should probably give my thoughts on like the series as a whole. Probably be a good idea, right? Just kind of like wrap it all up. Yeah, let's do that. Spraying a champagne glass just hits different. Overall, Healin Good Pretty Cure is a really good show, and I highly recommend that you watch it. I will admit that I wasn't 100% confident that I was going to enjoy the show, but I wanted to give it a shot anyways because Flower Gothic sang such high praises of it. It took a few episodes before the show really sunk its teeth into me, but once it did, I couldn't stop watching. There were only a couple of monster designs that felt kind of bland, but on the whole, every single fight was very interesting and varied to the point where no two fights ever felt the same. I only wish that we got more filler episodes to better flesh out our characters and the world they inhabit, but the character development that we did end up getting throughout the show was good enough. The one filler episode that does exist is kind of boring and rather unnecessary in terms of filler, but the fact that it was supposed to air the week after the Olympics where no episodes were going to air makes it a little less pointless, but the fact that it's on Crunchyroll now, it could have easily been taken out without any sort of consequences. I wouldn't say that this series made me a fan of the entire franchise, but I have a feeling that might change after I watch a few more continuities. And that's it. That's all she wrote.